Over 20 years ago, Blizzard announced that they were working on StarCraft GHOST, a military science fiction stealth action game. As a kid, and even to this day, I am a huge StarCraft fan, so the thought of getting to play a new StarCraft game and learn even more about that lore had me very intrigued. Unfortunately, for anyone excited to play StarCraft in a more close-up and personal experience than the RTF style allows, the game was actually put on indefinite hold back in 2006. Now, while we never got our hands on StarCraft GHOST, we did get to learn more about Nova, who is the main protagonist of the game. She had a couple of books written about her that allowed people to learn more about her backstory. We even got a Nova-based DLC campaign in StarCraft 2. While it may have not been the third-person stealth action game I wanted way back in 2002, it was nice to see her front and center in her own gameplay story. But even though we got all that, I still want to get a third-person stealth action game called StarCraft GHOST. I still want it even after 20 years. And with the mix-up of leadership with Microsoft buying Blizzard and it looking more and more likely that the deal is actually going to go through, I wanted to just do a video discussing this one game that I hope with the mix of leadership could actually possibly be revived. Why so many other channels are just talking about the politics of the deal, I wanted to focus on a dream game we may actually see finally get made. Now, before we take a deep dive into this what if game, I want to take a brief moment and welcome anyone new to the channel. If you are new, please consider subscribing. I got a ton of stuff in the works that I would love to share with you all. Also, if you do happen to enjoy the video, let me know by dropping a like. But anyways guys, we got a lot to get into, so without further ado, let's get into it. So originally, StarCraft GHOST was not just a simple third-person shooter like Gears of War. Instead, Nova would have used stealth and darkness to reach her objectives and remain undetected. And in order to accomplish this, the game was going to give the player several abilities to help you be successful in a stealth-based StarCraft game. Having abilities like a cloaking device that will allow you temporary concealment, or even thermal imaging goggles so you could spot enemies from far away. It was even going to give you an EMP gun so you could disable electronic devices in vehicles. Now, that being said, the game was not all stealth, it was action stealth. So Nova would also have access to a small arsenal of weaponry, from assault rifles and sniper rifles, to grenades and shotguns, and even to a flamethrower. She could even use hand-to-hand combat if the situation arose for it. I don't know about you guys, but this honestly reminds me of Metal Gear. After all, Snake would sneak around, but if caught, he did have tons of weapons to choose from to take the enemy out. He also had a ton of cool gadgets and could partake in hand-to-hand combat and was actually pretty proficient with it. Imagine how cool it would be to see a game like Metal Gear in the StarCraft universe. The game could even have some pretty cool, unique, and amazing boss fights. With Metal Gear, we had Psycho Mantis and Grey Fox. StarCraft has so many unique races and character units that I'm sure that with the right imagination, we would have had some great encounters that really would have stand out. From taking on a giant hulking monsters like the Ultralisk, to even coming across a Dark Templar from the Protoss. The world was jam-packed with so much interesting lore and exciting scenarios it could have put the player into. In fact, the reason it made me think of Metal Gear is because the developers were actually inspired by the stealth games at the time. The Ghost character has always been more of a stealth class, so in the game it would make sense that the story focus of one of them would have been heavily stealth based. Just look at this quote from one of the developers during a Polygon interview. Metal Gear was out. Splinter Cell wasn't too far out, so we felt it was a good fit. But while the game was inspired by the goats of the stealth genre, this was still a StarCraft game, so action had to be also a major focus point as well. Like I said before, Nova did have a small arsenal of weapons, but that's not all she was going to get. Nova was going to be able to pilot some of the StarCraft vehicles as well, such as the hover bikes, scout cars, and siege tanks. How amazing would it have been to have a level where we're piloting a siege tank or zoom through the battle on a hoverbike? They could have even had an awesome set piece where we pilot a Goliath and just mow down Zerglings or something of that nature. Hell, imagine if you could drop a laser sight on a Zerg base and just nuke it and blast it away. After all, nuking it from orbit is the only way to be sure, right? But if this game sounds so amazing, why was it canceled? Well, for starters, the game was not being developed by Blizzard themselves. Instead, the game was being outsourced to an external studio, Nihilistic. If you don't recognize the name, that's okay. All you need to know is they were the guys behind Vampire the Masquerade Redemption. So while StarCraft GHOST was not being made by Blizzard themselves, it still had a talented studio behind it. So how does such an amazing sounding game get canceled? I don't think I'll ever discover the real reason, but it seems like the team got mixed messages from Blizzard during the development process. Just look at some of the stuff that the developer said during a Polygon interview. There would be large gaps in feedback for Nihilistic. When you're not on site every day and it takes a week to review something that a 10 through 15 person team has already moved on from. And then there was also huge chunks of changes and feedback requests. I think that's when things really started to get off track. It started as stealthy and we love what the team had done, making levels based on sneaking and using the laser spot to drop a nuke and so on. But as we played the demo, there was a large contingency of people who believed it should have been more action-based. A certain amount of the team felt like an action game would have been cooler. Blizzard wanted more action. So yes, it definitely feels like Blizzard wanted to make changes very late in the development process of the game. After all, the gameplay I'm showing was leaked footage of the original StarCraft GHOST, and for a 2002 base game, it looks pretty damn good. So I have to ask, why did Blizzard want to make all these changes? After all, Nova was a ghost. Ghosts have always been more stealthy oriented in StarCraft lore. If they wanted an action game, make a Space Marine first person shooter. But honestly, back in 2006 was a time where Blizzard definitely felt like it was starting to shift in a different direction overall. In 2005, Blizzard not only canceled the Blizzard North version of D3, they even closed the studio down. It definitely feels like the original direction of Diablo 3 and what David Bruvik wanted and what Blizzard expected were two very different things. Hence why when Blizzard finally released their own version of Diablo 3, it was a much different experience than what originally was envisioned by Blizzard North. I do have a video in the works going over this in more detail, so if you are interested in that, stick around. The point I'm trying to make is during this time period, there was obviously a shift at Blizzard, and they definitely wanted to be more mainstream, and action-based games have always been more popular than stealth ones, which is a real shame because I think StarCraft GHOST could have been something truly special, and I've always wanted to get my hands on the game. Like I said at the start of the video, luckily for us, with Microsoft buying Blizzard, a shakeup of leadership is going to happen, and we may actually see some of their old IPs rise from the ashes. Microsoft does have a history of taking risk from taking one of their popular IPs and putting it in a different genre. With Halo, we got to see the game go from a first-person shooter to a real-time strategy game with Halo Wars 1 and 2, to even a twin-stick shooter with Halo Spartan Assault and Spartan Strike. With Gears, we got to see the game go from a third-person shooter to a turn-based tactical one with Gears Tactics. So they're honestly willing to take some risk. And I think making a stealth action game out of StarCraft is way more of a risk than it was to turn Halo into a real-time strategy game or Gears into a turn-based game. Plus, now that Nova has been more developed as a character, I'm sure fans would get even more excited if they were to announce her own video game and the revival of StarCraft GHOST. but I want to hear what you guys all think. Would you be excited if StarCraft Ghost was announced? What developer would you want to see take the reins on the game? Let me know in the comments down below. As for me, I got a ton of work to do, so I'm going to get back to the grind and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.